I had started Clair Obscur Expedition 33 about a week and a half ago and made it through the prologue and about halfway through Act 1 and had already written a majority of this review based off of my progress so far. I, like many others, was going to give it a glowing review talking up the story, the combat, everything I loved about it to overwhelmingly recommend it to any viewers watching. But then I played through the rest of the game. And I have to say that my opinion of this game changed more than I expected by the end. What I found to be really great was merely very good, and the cracks, of which I found almost none in the first 5 to 10 hours, started to really show by the end. Some people will likely get really pissed off at this review because it's not going to be nearly as complimentary as I first plan on it being, and the internet doesn't really like dissenting opinions, but then people also really get pissed off when I do give something a glowing review, so I gotta just be me and give my honest opinion on Expedition 33. Follow along if you dare, but first, a little personal context. See, RPGs are probably my favorite genre of game, with fighters right behind them. I know it's cliche, but I like settling into a story that starts small and grows into a quest where you get acquainted with and care about the characters you meet, and it all culminates into some giant battle against a big bad. Maybe it's something as small as just saving a princess, or as big as crossing time and space itself to save a world from ending, but you feel like you've actually gone on this journey with your party, and when those ending credits roll, you're a little sad that it's done. If it's really great or exceptional, you may just start it up all over again, looking forward to reliving all your favorite moments. My love of video games have really eroded over the past 10 years or so. I blame the corporations and what they've turned them into. Bloated, cynical, homogenous messes held together with patches and shoehorn microtransactions and DLC that should have been included with the game to begin with. And that's without even getting into all of the political shit that's been crammed into these games. One could argue that none of this began until horse armor was introduced, and it's been a race to the bottom since then, with fewer and fewer bright spots each year. Even bringing horse armor up again is timely to me since, as of this video, Oblivion was just re-released in the past few weeks. I mention all of this because I thought Expedition 33 looked beautiful, had an interesting premise, and the combat was a return to what I like, as opposed to Square Enix's forward march into, mediocre action game territory, and despite some, let's call them quirks, this game really is a good palate cleanser for those of us sick of modern Final Fantasy and AAA Western RPGs. It wears its heart and passion on its sleeve, and that alone makes me glad that it's become such a big hit. And also, I just want to mention ahead of time that this review is going to contain some minor spoilers. Expedition 33 takes place in this world that is inspired by Belle Époque, France, and starts in the city of Lumiere. This game takes place 67 years after an event called the Fracture, where the Paintress, the game's antagonist, appeared with this giant monolith and paints a cursed number on it. The world breaks apart, with Lumiere being cast into the ocean, separating them from the rest of the world. Every year, the Paintress paints a new cursed number on the monolith, and everybody of age that matches the cursed number is erased, Infinity Gauntlet style, but instead of ash, it's like super dramatic red flower petals. Probably because they're French, the game was designed by French people, and that's how it is there. If it were America, we'd turn into chicken wings or beer and give middle fingers to everybody around us as we're going away. Maybe both wings and beer, because they're wonderful together. Anyways, each year this city sends out an expedition that travels to the continent the Paintress is on to stop her, or at least learn more on how to stop her. Like, nobody in this game expects to live at all, so the phrase, "for those who come after," is said a lot in this. Despite the overwhelming lack of hope, these are people who still try to find ways to smile and talk and enjoy their time left, despite death being this physical clock that they can see across the ocean. Like, if the word melancholy was made into a video game, it would be this. Gustav is the leader of Expedition 33, and you'll meet all the other characters in the prologue and learn about their personalities, some of their backstories, and then after the Paintress comes and puts 33 on the monolith, it's another race against time to stop her. Unfortunately, landing on the continent's beach does not really end up going as planned, and it ends up looking a lot like the invasion of Normandy, and most of the expedition is wiped out. So for all you Suikoden fans who were hoping for lots of characters to have in your party in this, you're going to be a little bit disappointed. Will Gustav and the survivors succeed in defeating the Paintress and making the world safe for puppies, or will they just help push a little further for those who come after? What secrets does the island hold, and what happened to the previous expeditions? Why did the Paintress do all of this to begin with, or does she just hate the French? Are the French still mad at me for my scathing review of Asterix and Obelix, Roman Rumble, and Las Vegas that I did years ago? Will you like this video enough to support the channel by subscribing or sending me pizza money? Most of these answers await you, adventurers. All joking aside, the game is gorgeous. As someone who spends more time playing games made in 2005 and older, it is admittedly nice to play a new release and check out all the fancy graphics that come with it. The continent itself is pretty amazing to behold, with lots of very diverse but in a good way areas, beautiful views to appreciate as you're traveling, and monsters that range from the horrific to mimes. Because who of us hasn't wanted to throw down with a mime before, right? I know I sure have. I played this on the Xbox Series X, and I did notice pop-in when traveling the overworld of the continent, which was kind of surprising to me. It reminded me of playing old PC and PS2 games, and also as I played through quality mode, several cutscenes had some fairly stuttery frame rates. Nothing game-breaking at all, but it's noticeable and bears mentioning to those of you who really want everything looking smooth and perfect. As with many classic RPGs, this game has a large overworld that's split up into a bunch of different zones to travel to. An overhead map helps you make your way around, and because it's a modern but in a good way game, each individual zone's resting spots lets you fast travel between them, so backtracking isn't painful. Exploration is really fun in this as well, as there are lots of little side paths and hidden grottos you can check out to find things like weapons, potion upgrades, and costumes. The overworld itself has a ton of areas to explore, along with endgame zones with lots of extra challenges and side quests. Many of the zones also have mimes that you can find and kill for new costumes and hairstyles, just in case the joy of sending them to mime hell isn't enough for you. It happens to be just enough for me. Look, if you're making invisible ropes and invisible boxes, what else are you making that's invisible? Invisible so that you can That's not okay. That's how people get sick. Look, I don't know where you grew up, but where I come from, we don't. The combat is turn-based, and it takes its inspiration from a few different RPGs like Persona, Legend of Dragoon, and Final Fantasy X. Now, despite being turn-based, the game still forces you to be engaged in each battle because you'll still be hitting the action button at various times to maximize damage, or when your enemy is attacking, you'll have to dodge or parry attacks to survive by hitting the corresponding button at the right moment, with the latter allowing you to counterattack. I played this on normal difficulty with QTEs on as intended, and on normal or hard, if you want to have any chance at surviving even normal enemies, you'll need to learn to use both of these. That will be a turn-off to people who want a strict turn-based RPG because you will wipe much more often without doing it. With that in mind, you're going to get worked pretty hard in boss fights until you learn their patterns, which you'll have to do pretty quickly, unless you've looked at a guide beforehand and know what to expect. Unless I'm wrong, I think every boss in this got the first attack at the start, which, if you miss all of your windows to dodge or parry, can already set you up for failure before your first turn even starts. I think this is garbage. It was really frustrating to start a fight with maybe half health or less because I didn't know the appropriate times to dodge or parry the opening attack, get a boss down to their last 20% or so of their health, whiff some parries and dodges, and wipe the party and have to start all over. And this is especially true for a few boss fights where I had the hang of things after a while, then the boss would have more than one phase and I'd have an entire other health bar to get through along with new or modified attacks to try and learn. I would have known all this had I consulted a guide, but I usually try not to use those when playing new games, and as a result I got my ass kicked in several times. Oddly enough though, more on the rank and file trash enemies when I'd enter a new zone and less on the bosses. There were several enemies in this, especially later in the game, who would get multiple turns in a row and annihilate my party. Then, when I'd finally get a turn for whoever was left alive, I'd revive one member or heal whoever was left, just to have it happen all over again. So here's an example. When an enemy is enraged, they get 2 turns in a row. Multiply this by up to 3 enemies, taking into account that most enemy attacks hit at least 2 times, and you're waiting several turns of just dodging or hoping to parry enough to get a counterattack. Missing just one of these attacks or dodging means you aren't allowed to counter, even if you successfully parry the entire rest of the attack combo. Even messing up a little bit eventually chips your health down to nothing because you're just continuing to get hit. This was infuriating. Anyways, I like relying on my intuition more when playing games like this, and having to rely on parrying and dodging so much was a downer. Parrying in particular never feels natural because enemies frequently delay the last hits of their attacks, so taking that along with a smaller window to parry than dodge, and this whole system just wasn't enjoyable. On the other side of that though, once you learn an enemy's attack patterns and can defend against them, you can pretty much steamroll any enemy with almost no difficulty, bosses included. So yes, while some fights are balanced, some would also be one of these other 2 extremes. All of the fights in this feel more or less intentional, and I really liked that. There are no random encounters in this, and you'll have lots of opportunities to initiate the fight first and get to attack first, and enemies are not littered so much in each zone that you'll feel like it's a slog to get to the next story beat. And this is because each of the flags that you can stop at allow you to rest and respawn enemies, so if you're feeling froggy, there are occasions where you can just run past enemies to get to where you're going if you don't want to fight, though you need to be confident enough in combat to forego leveling up to do this, and I've already told you how that can go. In and out of combat, you'll use potions with limited uses that refresh at each of your rest spots as well. All of this feels efficient and streamlined, and the regenerating potions also means no inventory management, and I love that. The party screen is where everybody is standing around looking like they're members of a Christian rock band, and also this is where you'll be able to manage everybody's weapons, their skills, and extra perks during battle called Pictos. Weapons in this scale with different stats, much like Souls-like games. Pictos, however, are where you can do a lot of the customizing of how you fight. Lots of these vary from allowing you to always attack first, to doing extra damage when you're low on health, and more, and that's in addition to the stat benefits that come with each of them when you equip them. And there's a ton of variety to these, and it was really fun to play with them. Winning 4 battles with one equipped means you permanently learn it and it becomes a Lumina, and you can equip that freely afterward. Knowing your party's strengths and how to combo each of these Pictos and Lumina together were vital to your success. Also vital to your success are learning each character's fighting style and how they complement each other. You don't just have the normal class archetypes except for maybe Lune, who is your mage and healer. You've got characters who can debuff enemy defenses and use attack magic. You've got another one who can use cards to build enough energy to do extra damage, and more. Everybody is a joy to play as, and I hated only having 3 characters on the field at the same time because I really wanted everybody out at once. In addition to getting acquainted with your expedition's synergy as a team, you'll get to know them each as individual characters as well, and they all feel unique and interesting. And there's plenty of spoken dialogue while traveling the world, but all of it feels intentional. Compare this with something like Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, where the characters are obnoxious, they don't ever shut up, and nothing they say is ever of value. Kind of like watching the news media, or probably your manager at work. While traveling the overworld, you can camp out to handle upgrading and also have some more personal moments with your party members, and these quiet moments away from progressing the story really help to flesh out the characters and the world they live in. At least to me, they were reminiscent of conversations you'd have with your team in the Mass Effect games, complete with raising relationship levels to get new special attacks. It's not all perfect though, at least to me. Late in the game, I realized something about our heroes. None of them have an arc. There is no growth or change to them by the end of the game, except maybe the characters of Verso and possibly Mael. Everybody has the same goal in mind, and you get some background, and all of that is really well and good, but they just don't go anywhere with it. And I can't really say more about this without giving away more of the story and the major plot points, but I just felt dissatisfied at the end of it all. That complaint aside, it's also at camp where you can upgrade your weapons, and thankfully these are all simple and don't involve hunting for materials because this game features no crafting. Maybe you like crafting, and more power to you if you do, but I get no enjoyment from having to collect 20 Rocky Mountain oysters and 30 bundles of sticks to make an axe. What I did like collecting were journals that were left behind by previous expeditions to learn about what they encountered and how it related to what our current heroes were facing. They're fully voice acted, and quite well, I might add, and that was a great touch too. In fact, each of the flags you rest at have a different number on them as they were all planted by expeditions that were there before. All of this was a really nice touch, and I wanted more of it because it is a really interesting world that this takes place in. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 started out stronger than most RPGs I can think of in recent memory, but kind of edged off and even dropped a little in quality by the end. Judging it by the sum of its parts, it's still a very good game, but I don't think it's the 10 out of 10 masterpiece that some have been saying online. I honestly thought the story was going to be a little bit more unique than it ended up being, and unfortunately, after the Act 1 finale, the game falls into some familiar tropes, and by the end of Act 2, you'll probably know where this is headed from a mile away. That's not necessarily bad or to say that I didn't enjoy it, but with such a unique premise and world, and a really great, I mean really great, prologue and beginning of Act 1, I started to think that this was really different. And it's got some cool moments. But between the sometimes frustrating and unbalanced combat to the story fizzling out a little toward the end along the way with my issues with the lack of character development, I wanted to make an attempt at an honest review to help inform those on the fence and know what I thought really worked and what didn't. Have you played it yet, and did you like it? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.